Everybody gets dust on their sensor. It shows up as little spots in clear areas of your picture. Like if you take a picture of the sky, you might see a little blob that wasn't really there. I'm gonna show you how to clean your sensor. I've tried several different techniques, and I've just recently started using a new technique that has worked better and has cleaned some spots that I couldn't clean with my previous technique, so I'm updating it with this new stuff. It's not sponsored, I just paid for it out of my own pocket, did my own experimentation, and this is the solution that I like best. First, if you aren't sure whether your sensor has dust on it, well, it might not be a problem. But sometimes you want to test it proactively. If you have a big shoot, we always clean our sensors beforehand just to make sure we don't ruin a bunch of pictures. Here's an easy way to test for spots on your sensor. I find it easier to put my camera into live view, and then I'll switch my lens to manual focus, and I'll focus as close as possible. Just spin the lens until you get to the minimum focusing distance, and then put your camera into aperture priority mode, and you choose the highest f-stop number possible. So I'm at f22 at the minimum focusing distance, and I'm just going to get so close to something that it's just completely out of focus. And as I look around the screen, I will see some spots as I move. So there are spots in the screen that aren't moving. Those are dust spots on the sensor. You could also just take a picture of a white wall. I'd like to just get close enough that the wall would be out of focus, and then any spots that you see are obvious. You can usually see the dust with your naked eye though too. If you have reading glasses, you might need to use them, but take your lens off. If you have an SLR, you'll have to put your camera into cleaning mode. That's buried in the menu somewhere. It's usually like the very last menu item. Put it into cleaning mode, and that will flip the mirror up. If your camera has an auto cleaning option, that's a good place to start. But if that doesn't fix it, then choose clean manually to move the mirror out of the way to give you access to the sensor. Again, on a mirrorless camera, this is not necessary. There is no mirror to move out of the way. Make sure you turn the camera off. Now, as I'm looking at that, I can actually see some dust flecks on my sensor. So that's definitely what's causing the flecks that I'm seeing in the photos. Okay, so let's dig into our kit here. I'm using a kit from VSGO. It's a two-part kit. It has swabs and then some cleaning fluid. I know, it's pretty scary to be putting fluid around your camera. I've done this before. You don't have to do it. If you're afraid, if you're gonna hold me responsible for this, send this camera back, pay your manufacturer 50 or 100 bucks and they'll clean your sensor for you. I always do this myself, and in fact, I travel with this stuff because inevitably when I'm out traveling, I end up getting some dust on my sensor. So this two-part kit, the swab and the cleaning, I'm gonna tear this open to pull my swab out. And then I'm just going to put a couple of drops here on the tip of the swab to make sure that the whole edge is completely covered. The instructions tell you to do this whole process with a dry swab first, but that was not sufficient for me and I don't see the point, so I'm not going to do it, but you're welcome to follow the instructions and play it safe. The little cap comes out. You want to make sure you save that so you can seal it up later. Now, I just want to make sure this whole edge here is completely moist, and make sure you don't touch it because it's very important that it not get any extra dust on it or it could be scratched. And I'm just gonna put a couple of drops here. It should only take 2 drops, but you do want to make sure the whole edge is wet. There you go. I can see that the whole edge is moist. I will replace that cap so it doesn't all evaporate. Now, what I'm going to do is to put this on the left side of the sensor, line it up at the edge of the sensor here, and I'm going to gently drag it across the sensor. Then I'm going to, holding it in the same orientation without flipping it, I'm going to do the exact same process from right to left. You'll want to be extremely delicate with it. You can apply a tiny amount of pressure, but especially if your camera has sensor stabilization, as this one does, you'll be able to feel it moving around a little bit, and you definitely don't want to put too much force on the mechanics of that. This should be sufficient so that if you look at it in the light, all the dust is gone. I don't see any need to go through. They recommend using a dry swab, a wet swab, and then a dry swab. That seems unnecessary to me. It seems like using the one swab does a great job and saves you a lot of money because you're using 1/3 of the swabs. Now that I have that sensor cleaned, I can turn my camera off. If you have a DSLR, that'll cause the mirror to flip back down and protect your sensor again. And then you can put a lens on to protect your sensor on an SLR or your mirror on a DSLR. Like I said, this is the VSGO package, no sponsorship or anything. You have to get the swab in the size that matches the narrow length of your sensor. So I created some links depending on the type of camera that you have. If you have a Micro Four Thirds camera, you can go here to sdp.io/DDR12, APS-C DDR16, or a full frame camera, go to sdp.io/DDR24. That's it.